Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my special guest, Miles Johnston. And welcome back.
Well, Solaris, I'd just like to put a shout out to the guys behind Revolution Radio. The whole thing that you guys are doing is just fantastic. I remember at the UFO Congress, which I'm going to shortly, the International UFO Congress. It's not a conference; it's a congress. That to have Lorien and a whole bunch of people, even the infamous James Casbolt, who's returned back to this country with his tail between his legs, unquote. But just to have a bunch of people huddled in a room, and Lorien hosting the show, it was like in the old days of the wireless, where people would huddle round in their rooms listening to the wireless, this little box in the corner, and we were all sitting around there and talking to so many people. And I think the guys at Revolution Radio, you really need a huge congratulations for doing all this. Now, the first thing I must talk about is the thing that the jingle that you ran. Do not be afraid, okay? One of the things which the guys who had to go through this process to find this information, they went interdimensionally. They saw what others were seeing, so they could tell us, right? Is they had to go through the fear elimination program. So when you understand that the matrix, or what it's not a matrix, it's we are being so conned. And that's why when your listener referred to Ireland, the reason why they had to program the Irish to hate each other's guts and fight all the time was so that the special blood, for instance, in Northern Ireland, when they wiped out 300 or 400 years ago, there's a lot of people bumped off. Queen Elizabeth the First placed a whole lot of different people in Northern Ireland, and where I'm from, I can see it coming, okay? It's got the highest rhesus negative population on the planet outside the Basque community. And I owe that information to a wonderful woman there called Sandra Barr, and you must have her on. She has worked so many things out, and she's a really brilliant woman, and was part of the wake-up call team of people here in England before that was sort of knocked for six, because we started putting on conferences here. Not me, they did. And they put on conferences in Ireland and Scotland and England called the Wake Up conferences, but they've been pretty heavily targeted, so a lot of them are not talking to each other, which is how they work, which is how the enemy works. It can find people who've worked out what's going on, and then they disrupt them. And what they do is that they simply work out the personality profiles of people in the group, and then find out what is necessary to simply break that group up, and bingo, they break up. And that's one of the symptoms of what's happened in Ireland. The British came to Ireland, and we've been under their tyranny ever since. All this rubbish. It's not the Brits. It's an enemy much more dangerous, and the Irish are now beginning to see they've thrown out the tyranny of the various control mechanisms. So what happened with Atlantis was that they started to mess about with the physical construct of the human bioframe. They started to create horrendous monster type things because they started to play God, literally. And they apparently created a virus or a mathematical intelligent device which was so toxic to life they had to be wiped out, deleted. And that happened, and the vestige of that civilization re-emerged from the islands which off the coast of Europe, what we now call Europe, and started to repopulate the grasslands of Europe all those years ago. And the extraterrestrial beings and things like the Greys were allegedly created by us all those years ago. Remember what I first said, the so-called white race was the first race here to emerge and hunted dinosaurs. We were much bigger then. The planet was much smaller. The dinosaurs met their end, although some people say they still exist as birds. Humanity's lifespan was reduced from 900 years plus or more to 500 or so years, and then it reduced again by the gods or whoever brought us here. And we're now limited to about 120 years and to a much smaller frame, which is about 6 feet or so. Mm-hmm. That is so that our soul recycling would be faster, so that we would learn more. So it appears that we had our lifetime reduced so that we would learn faster as souls because there's of this predator. Now, the thing is, I'm not going to go into anything more than that because it triggers too many pre-programmed prejudice responses. And this is why when I say, about what your jingle said at the start of the show, don't be afraid. Mm-hmm. Don't look down. It's just begin to be alert, to understand, wake up, comprehend. No matter who is walking around here, they're good people. Mm-hmm. But the enemy looks just like us. Mm-hmm. Okay? And in some respects, the film They Live does indicate in a crude form what we're dealing with, okay? I'm not giving any of the massive answers here, but if you have a triggered response of prejudice against another fellow human being, there's usually a reason for that, and that's a reason why we've got to take a step back. And I mean, in Ireland, all the trouble that's been caused there. I mean, the whole. I mentioned my friend Terry Hooley for two reasons, but the main reason was that in his book Hooligan, mm-hmm. There was a massive wake up of consciousness in Belfast in the 1960s. People of all religions were talking to each other. In other words, they were beginning to break program. Okay.
Right.
Now the point about this is that the powers that be couldn't allow that, so that the IRA was created by British intelligence to make sure that the Irish damn well did not wake up. So make no mistake about it, the whole trouble that we had in the so-called Troubles, and all Irish Americans need to know this, you have been really conned, okay? I mean, what the hell were you doing? You were sending money back to Ireland to kill Irish people. What kind of stupidity is that? Mm-hmm. Anyway, the point is that all of us are being conned, and it's difficult for us to wake up properly to safely comprehend the situation of what's going on. And it's going to be shows like yours. People have to. What's happened since the collapse of the Amash project here in England is or the British Isles, is that a lot of the witnesses, many of them still very badly damaged after that experience, after 2.5 years. They're having quiet little discussions amongst themselves, just quietly meeting up. There's some wonderful people which are in the background who are waking up and seeing things without fear or prejudice. Mm-hmm. And they're able to then understand and see there's targeted individuals in Britain now having terrible experiences, but they're waking up. They're having little quiet meetings with each other. Don't put your thoughts online. Now, it means that you can communicate with each other using the old-fashioned postal system or written word. But in other words, you've got to keep yourself on the radar without letting the radar know that you're thinking something different. Mm-hmm. Now, that's difficult.
Oh, yeah.
So meet together quietly in the good old days of, I mean, how revolutions were made. You know, guys, we had revolutions before the internet, for Christ's sake. You know, you can have social structures which don't rely on broadband or,
Absolutely. Yeah. And,
so telephones.
Right. And Miles, coming from the spectrum of psychotronic programming and all the covert intelligence programs they run, that's another avenue too, because they're compromising the mind. So your thoughts aren't even at that point. You don't have any free thoughts. So that's another thing to look at. Also, is that they're deploying technology so they're able to infiltrate the mind and control it, so that the output would be something that's to their liking, opposed to your own independent revolutionary thoughts. Right.
Absolutely, and everybody should give a big shout out to Solaris BlueRaven, who's gone through that and stood up for herself, and she's here doing this program. And what a wonderful woman you are!
Well, thank you. It's been a long road, I'll tell you what. Big time.
Yes, you're proof that you can get through this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the synthetic telepathy stuff. I mean, I was talking to a girl in Northern Ireland. And she's gone through the most horrendous stuff. I mean, I'm the co-founder of the Irish UFO Research Centre, and we had our first meetup. Technically, we had our first meetup in January of this year in Northern Ireland, where one of the founding guys who helped start it way back in the 70s, suddenly he felt the need to drive and say hello to me in a very rare visit. I go back there, and he's visited by a couple of greys or beings. Something is up that's scaring them, and that's one of the reasons I'm trying to say as much as I can without scaring people. But we need to wake up, okay? Absolutely.
And I do have another question from Karen K. I just want to make sure I mention this. Please ask Miles if the Pix people, OGGB, or the Little People of Great Britain are native people to the Earth.
Well, none of us are native to the Earth. That's the point.
Right.
No human being that walks upright. We are not derived from monkeys. Okay. Now, monkeys are derived from the Earth. They obey a mathematical construct which requires the type of body they've got to survive here. Likewise, we have to live in bodies which are suitable for this space-time dimensional construct, this complex set of enfolding fields. So we have to live in these bodies, okay? So it's the soul which is important. But the body that we're being given is so fantastic. Don't abuse it. Don't discount it. Don't wreck it. I mean, we've been given these bodies to experience so many things, and so enjoy that and don't abuse it. And heaven is not in heaven; it's here. Once you're gone, you're out there with all the energies and creatures and beings in the other domains. As energies, but this life is precious. We need to protect it, and the ability to reincarnate and come back and go through all forms of learning exercises and things is a wonderful, hugely fantastic thing. Mm-hmm. What's going to be taken away from us is our ability to ever do that.
Right.
And I think so the Egyptians, the civilizations that had to stay in the underground chambers at Egypt and re-emerged, I think 2 or 3 times. They emerged twice and then had to go back. And when they came out, they weren't in too good a state. And likewise here in the so-called British Isles, we re-emerged, and then the climates changed, went up and out, down, and all that. So those secrets, some of that's in a book called Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs, and that's available online. The author, some of that work has been used by Michael Tazarian, mm-hmm. Who some claim is is a lackey of the Rockefellers, but we'll see. I mean, his work is, he credits, Michael does credit Andrew Power. The book's written by Andrew Power. It's focused on the matrix construct of the Irish, going back to a ritual ceremony called the Battle of the Boyne. It wasn't a battle, it was a ritual ceremony, okay? But I don't want to go into those sort of details because it's too intense. But the point is, we are all non-terrestrial beings, okay?
Exactly.
Brought here, okay?
And that would include NK and Anu. Another question.
Well, this is it. They could still be around, but the construct which is here is too dangerous for them. That's one of the problems. We are going to have to exceed the basic. The problem is that the so-called gods, the caretakers, are gone. They can't get back. Right? The gods, which of the Enel and Enki and all that, may all be up there, but they can't do anything here. We have to exceed the net programming that we've been given to create a solution. Okay? So it's a little bit like we're all Z80 computer processors, and we've got to somehow run Windows 8. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody know what a Z80 processor was?
What year? What century? Oh, just teasing you.
Well, let's put it this way: you had a 286 processor, a 386 processor, a 486 processor, and then a 586. Then it ran out of numbers, and they all put stupid names on them. Basically, a Z80, I think, was one of the first microprocessors where the general public could operate any kind of computer. You're going back to the 1980s, I think, now. You know, in the days where we had flickering electric light, color television, and telephones with wires on them. Can anybody understand what a telephone with a wire on it is? It's called a phone. It just makes phone calls, doesn't take pictures. Okay, is that too much? Am I being too sarcastic there?
I love it. No, you're fine. But we do have the transmitter and receiver built in, our wonderful minds, our supercomputer minds that.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is the 2045.com thing where the Illuminati have been wanting to create bodies so that they can transfer their souls, the toxic. You see, this is the point. Maybe Mother Nature has bitten them in the ass after all. This predator, in order for it to activate physically, has had to take over the Illuminati. They had to walk in so many respects and use the original Illuminati elite's bodies, right? So they were able to operate within our physical domain and action the higher secret societies and things. And again, you see, the use of the human egos against itself has been very successful, where the secret societies, they're all right, we're okay, the rest of them can go and, whatever themselves. No, it's not going to work out that way. You shot yourself in the foot, this particular predator. So it has to reincarnate into perfectly formed bodies in order to sustain their physical existence here and continue their ability to control us and destroy us and kill us and wipe us out. And make no mistake about it, we are going to be totally wiped out. It's been done before. It was done to the gods. The point is that the plan has been, or one of the plans has been, to suitably corrupt the human body's life cycle. in other words, the reincarnation cycle where the soul leaves the body, then you do whatever, and you then come back.
Mm-hmm.
That cycle, in order to wipe us all out, they thought that the thing was that basically the thing was that they took over white bodies to do this. The original races here, they took them over, and they've taken over the other races, right? But their plan is to totally destroy all of us, right? But they've come up with a bit of a snag, I understand, in that they've lost the ability to choose which body they're going to come back in, which means from their perspective, they could come back as a rat. I mean, it's almost a Hindu philosophy, I think, where, your bad karma is going to bite you in the ass. You're going to come back as a snake or something,
exactly.
or a cockroach or something. Now, I'm trying to use terms that people can understand, but basically, in order to survive that, they're desperately trying to create cloned bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is that because they've already damaged the bodies they're in, they haven't been able to create a clone of that body which isn't already damaged, and so it will not accept the soul that they've got. They won't be able to move from body A to body B, or sorry, A1, not body B, but A1, 2, 3, etc. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the program behind the 2045 agenda, is the creation of clones. Right?
Yeah, and they take the brain templates also now with the supercomputers and the artificial intelligence. So you've got mind mapping, interfacing onto the communication system. You have a brain template from a living subject, test pilot, whatever. And then, of course, they take that template later on, whether they use it for a clone or put it someplace else. But still, they're storing data for sure.
Yeah, I think you're referring to Joe 90, Jerry Anderson's fictional puppet TV series from the 1970s. Joe 90 was a blonde kid, blue-eyed, stuck in a rotating sphere where he would take the soul of a dead scientist and then action that.
And also, if you read Project Soulcatcher, you'll find it in there as well, talking about the brain templates. Because, that's exactly the technology.
That was on British children's television in 1970, for Christ's sake.
Amazing, isn't it?
If you look at Fireball XL5, Jerry Anderson made this puppet TV series for Lou Grade, a prominent major Jewish brilliant entertainment specialist who owned a massive part of the ITV network, and ITC Entertainment. And Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, and the Mistrons from Mars, and that series of programs. I think George Newry's into it. He sometimes plays some of the theme music from Jerry Anderson's shows, Fireball XL5 and things. I was a big fan of the series as a kid, but believe it or not, girls and boys, Miles was actually once small and had hair.
Oh my goodness!
God help us all. The thing was that somehow Jerry Anderson got that information, which is rather interesting. That you're talking about the Soulcatcher program and stuff like that, but why was it in a children's television program from England in 1970?
Right.
And why did he also refer to Jerry Anderson have a thing called UFO TV series? Which, there's a lot. He seemed to know rather a lot. He's now passed on, but Thunderbirds, all that sort of stuff. Thunderbirds, a secret elite force, helping and fighting and going all around the place. That's what we need, folks. If there's anybody out there with a couple of £100 billion who might want to save Earth and life on it and everything else, we need a Tracy Island, please. Hello. If anybody, and I'm not talking about one of the plastic kits you used to buy in the high street. I'm talking about a real one. Okay, so I don't want people sending me 1960s Tracy Island.
Are you sure? I tease.
Yeah, but the point is that we're being told an awful lot of this stuff. I'm almost convinced that the Doctor Who science fiction concept that the BBC aired in 1963, I think was so far ahead of any science fiction that's ever been done before on that. I think the only closest thing that you've got is Arthur C. Clarke's concept of life coming from Saturn. It wasn't Jupiter, by the way; it was Saturn that the monolith came from.
And Karen K has a question for you. Please ask Miles how the Predator can be defeated.
The Predator can be defeated by us all waking up and defeating and exceeding the programming that we've been programmed with. Okay. We have to think sufficiently outside of the box to outwit the Predator. In other words, we must come up with a solution to the problem which exceeds our current programming. Now, that's the method that we must adopt is not the answer to the question. But the first stage of that is to wake up, but not letting them know you have woken up. So you must, in order to defeat any enemy, you must study the enemy. You must understand what the enemy is before you reveal yourself to that enemy. Otherwise, it will know that you are coming, and it will kill you. So, in terms of a strategy, it will already know that we're plotting against it. Okay, so you've got to therefore factor that problem into your calculations in order to kill the enemy. Okay. First recognition is that we do have a predator. Second recognition is that predator knows you know that now. Third problem is that you've got to then provide a solution which will keep you unnoticed, while at the same time you conspire to kill that enemy. Right? So you've got to do it in such a way that you are not relevant. So one of the ways you can do that is to create a distraction, keep the enemy busy, blow up its fuel dump somewhere, attack its primary source of fuel. Right? You've got to taste bad so it doesn't want to eat you anymore.
Right.
Okay? And I think that's probably enough said.
Well said. Very much so. Indeed. Well, there's a lot happening across the globe here. So it's just a matter of people. Well, they already are awakening without a doubt. And I think the majority of what we're dealing with here is technological warfare. A lot of it. And then entities picking off of that. So in a racist of some kind.
Actually, I think what we have to do now is we have to recognize that we're living on a planet which has got lots of other indigenous life forms like the jinn or other beings which were here before we came. I think we have to talk to the original beings that were here, the energetic beings. Possibly that's what maybe was happening with the crop circles. I mean, these crop circles made by people have got entities and beings and energies looking at them being made.
Right. And the symbolism, the geometric symbolism, of course. Yeah.
Well, some of those are mind viruses, and I have to say that as far as the crop circles are concerned, quite a few of the people who make them are high on horse drugs. It's a horse. You're going to love this. They're not high on cocaine or anything else. I mean, that's just so last century. It's a particular type of horse tranquilizer.
Ketamine?
It could be that, yeah.
That's the one that's really, for horses.
So, we've had, a lot of these guys are also into forms of satanic worship. So the guys who make these formations, in fact, aren't necessarily A, playing with a full deck of cards, and B, are maybe providing a form of social and mind programming which is not healthy. And for this reason, there's been decisions being made here in Wiltshire to destroy any formations until these guys get the hell out of here.
Okay.
So I think that's all I can say about that.
And Miles, we have Steve Travesty has special permission to be here. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Steve is a host on Revolution Radio. I don't know if you've met him. Go ahead, Steve.
No, we have not met yet, but I absolutely love your work. I'd love to have you on my show sometime, but that's not why I'm here. So look, it's quite obvious that, this whole time you've just referred to the Predator we're dealing with as the Predator, but I mean, we're a mature audience. We're a smart audience, especially Solaris's audience. So what is it? Can we name our enemy, or at least describe?
No, I can't do that. And the reason why I can't do that is because it will set off too many triggers until you've managed to get past the fear elimination program. And then you won't see the enemy. That's how it works. You're going to have to first work out that we've got a problem. It looks just like you and I. And then you've got to then realize you've got to start thinking pretty well outside the box before you even think about engaging it.
Okay. Now you mentioned the method for the solution, which of course is not the solution in and of itself. Now I believe that many of us are working off of that method as it is, with the exception of the concept of the anonymity, at least for some of us, because we're the brave ones that are sticking our necks out by having radio shows or
absolutely yes, yeah.
But obviously, we're also talking to that guy who knows better than to blow his cover as being an awakened one, who sits amongst the machinations and the gears. Beyond that, are there any other really good things that you can tell us as tools towards this solution? Because there's certainly things where, a lot of people know me, but it's mostly in spirit. I mean, my last name is not Travesty, so unless you can absolutely confirm the voice or have seen my face or whatnot, I could walk around in certain circles, and not be known that I'm awakened if I chose to.
Well, this is a very good question, and the problem is that all the descriptions you've just said are known to it, because they've been. Make no mistake about it, they now have all the technologies in place. I think what's her name, Mackin, who was David Shaler's partner. Who's a former MI5 agent who went to AWOL in England and then decided he was Christ. Rather embarrassingly, they just said, right, David, you're going to mess around with us, we'll just make you la-la, okay? David Shaler's a British agent that for some time was kept in North London by a wonderful lady called Belinda Mackenzie, who also financed the late wonderful Lloyd Pye's work. In England, and we understand from Lloyd that he's in a new body now and he's very happy and he wants his work to continue through his partner that he had before he passed on. But that's another subject. In other words, the other beings out there want us to understand that there were non-humans here. We're all non-human. We're all extraterrestrials. But we've got to be in the system. We've got to give this predator a bloody nose. We've got to give it, we've got to make it feel sick. We've got to make it feel that it wish it never, ever showed its presence here, ever, and will never come back. And so you've got to work from the inside, you've got to work from the outside. You've got to give it a cold. Okay?
Thank you so much. I'm gonna hop off and let Solaris finish doing the awesome job.
Great.
Well, thanks, Steve. Did you get all your questions in, Steve?
I can't say the certainties. I can't say.
One more question, Steve. Go ahead.
I'll take this last question off the air. Many people believe what is theorized that the true crop circle makers, the ones that are making all the beautiful fractals and all that stuff, that they are eighth dimensional Arcturians or something like that. Is there any validity to that? And I will and I'll be listening on the air.
Thank you, Steve.
Right. Okay. Those crop circles are made by people. Okay. They're made by physical people. Now, those physical people, there are layers. There are layers within this, and I don't want to go too much further than that because it's very clear that it's best not to tread too deeply on that. I suggest that anybody who's looking at those formations should put up a firewall because I feel that they're being used to access the minds and consciousness of higher waking people to not be good for them. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I mean, I started to notice this when my own video camera would just literally looking at the pictures was enough to cause problem to the camera. For instance, one of the major photographers that we have here who takes pretty good pictures of the crop circles went to a field, hired a helicopter, and those things don't come cheap, went to a field, took lots of pictures of the field before there was a crop circle in it. Okay? The next day or two later, there was a formation created in that crop circle. Say that field. So, I mean, quite frankly, some of the proponents of the crop circles here who have been too horrified, unbelievably horrified to entertain that any of these crop circles could be made by horrible, nasty people, have been rather disingenuous with that horror, shall I say. And I'll say not much more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And there is a question from Cindy Lou again in the chat we have. Were those first people brought to Earth the red-haired giants known as the Nephilim or by some as the Anunnaki?
The Nephilim are here, they're involved, but they were humans. They're like the Bigfoot. They weren't too different. The physical forms that we were given then weren't too different from the Bigfoot, although they weren't the Bigfoot.
Okay, and how are they making them? That's the question from Steve Travesty adding on to that.
I don't know. I don't know. The point is that somebody has gone to an awful lot of trouble bringing beings or races or soul energies from a long way away to this wonderful planet. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know why they've done that, but the point is this predator can copy or can access where we came from originally using our DNA, and once they've beaten our collective existence, that all the wonderful races that we have, we've got a wonderful planet full of so many different people of different sources from across the universe. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fantastic what we've got here. And all those wonderful races, all those wonderful beings, all need protected, because the thing is that we're being used to fight against ourselves, so that we'll do things which will ultimately kill all of us.
Right.
And we've got to salute and recognize the rich diversity of life on this wonderful planet, and Mother Nature itself, and enjoy this wonderful paradise that we have here. Mm-hmm. And we're destroying it all. And that, there's a lot of people say, "Oh, we are destroying it." You know, every time you go into you get into your car and use gasoline and drive it, you're toxifying the planet, so we're all to blame. Well, I'm afraid not really, because we've been programmed that way. Mm-hmm. We've got to get, I mean, this idea of blaming us all, you know, we vote the politicians in. Well, no, we don't vote the politicians in. there hasn't been a single honest election in the United States and this country since they started elections.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's all been rigged. We're being completely controlled. But
programmed by
got,
deception.
Yes. And we give our permissions away by deceptions. I think that's possibly one of the most important things is permission. They always need us to give us permission. Mm-hmm. Right? I think that's possibly one of the, they're in their face. Hey, we're going to do all this to you. And then everybody doesn't do anything. So we give permission for us to do it. I think there's something I think that could be the way that we get them is don't give them permission.
Right. Access denied.
Yeah. Access denied.
Absolutely. And there is a question here from Wolfman J. Solaris, what does Miles say of the galactic wave, superwave, ribbon nexus? Anything?
I think that's a load of New Age hooey.
Okay.
The whole New Age thing is a mind control device developed around the popular music of the 1960s. A lot of the channelers, and I had a very interesting conversation with a lovely Chinese girl called Chewy at the crop circles. We've got one of our great sages of the crop circles is a guy called Nick Ashron, and I'm very honored to use some of his music for the Basis series. But Nick will sit. If you come to the crop circles, you by all means enjoy Wiltshire and the beautiful sunshine we got here. If there's any sunshine left, this 200% rainfall that we've had in the last 4 weeks. Right. Here, but Nick was very good in the way that he was able to discuss the channeling, which came through in the 30s, I believe, and he then expressed concern that then there's an awful lot more channeling coming through, and then an awful lot more, and he really does feel that an awful lot of this stuff is coming through as deception by that predator.
Right. Yeah. Entity controlled. Well, that's why you go with your higher self, over soul, super conscious, and the higher realms. Yes. Definitely.
And the other way of helping it is to try and keep your food intake a net alkaline, which will produce an alkaline solution to your thing. I was surprised to be told don't take any citrus fruits or all that stuff because it's and also alcohol, so that's me finished for a start. Ooh. So, but there's lots of toxins which we're being encouraged to take, which are actually bad for us. Eating good, wholesome food that you've created and done yourself. So, if you look at all those sort of things, what is the enemy doing? It's stopping you from having wholesome food. It's stopping you. It's toxifying our food. It's toxifying and killing our babies, our children, with child molesting. And I mean, the stories in Ireland and England and the political situation here, no species ever harms its young. And if you look at that, those who harm our young are the enemy. Now, being very careful about that. The pedophilic type thing, which is a horrendous subject, and I don't really want to talk too much about it. A lot of those people are self-programmed to perpetuate this, and it is horrendous. But the basic rule is, no species ever harms its young; it protects its young.
Absolutely.
So what does and what's the logic to that? If you look at the scale of it, it's clear that the institutions which are set up, many of us to and I referred back to the BBC again. No, it means it's not controlled by humans. Okay, it's controlled by that predator.
Right. And Miles, I have one special guest here. Bruce McDonald has a special call, and just to ask a brief question. Hi, Bruce. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm very well, Solaris. Thank you very much. Great show.
Thank you.
My quick question is this. As I listen to you, I find tremendous agreement with what you're saying. I think we're also in agreement that we live within a spiritual matrix that has certain immutable laws, one of which would be the law of cause and effect, what they call karma in the East. And I've asked this question to other people who spoke in a similar vein as yourself. How do these predators circumvent these laws? And I guess what I'm asking is get away with what they're doing. And I'll take my answer off air.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
That's a really good question, and I think that's how we get them. We have to analyze what we're dealing with. Know your enemy before you attack the enemy, because your attack must succeed. You're going to have one chance if you're lucky. So perhaps that's one way of doing it. And in fact, what I said earlier, that they're now desperately creating cloned bodies. This cyborg, they wanted to create cyborgs so they could live in a cyborg. The Battlestar Galactica story,
right?
Where the cyborgs. Again, using a science fiction thing is not maybe a good idea, but they're trying to create, in order for them, literally their karma has bitten them in the ass.
Exactly.
In so much that they're now desperately creating clones to try and sustain themselves, or they're trying to create a situation where they are so-called human. And now this is a difficult term because we're all humans. It's the soul that's in there that's the problem. The human body bioframe is the methodology where you can incarnate here and physically walk about. But the problem is that they are actually ultimately could succumb to those laws that you're talking about. But the point is, they don't play by the rules. They get you to play by the rules. They get you to think there's rules, and you'll be okay because ultimately they don't play by the rules.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've got to think outside the net sum of your programming, right? A brick is a brick, but somehow it builds a house. Okay.
Exactly. And martial arts comes to mind insofar as just knowing your enemy, knowing their strategic moves.
Now hold on here. Hold on, actually, Solaris, but this is another problem. Martial arts is a con, a complete con, right? Now this is really important. That's what I mean by you being conned. Martial arts is a fake. It's a con, right? And until you've seen how much of a con it is, you won't realize how big a con it is.
Well, interesting, Miles, because I am a black belt and it has helped me get through a lot of things. So
good. Okay, I'm glad that it has helped you. Yes, but if you were faced with those who were not trained in martial arts, you wouldn't last 2 seconds.
I don't believe that, because I got through this program, and now I'd have to debate that with you, my friend.
Good, yes, but that's exactly the point. That's why I'm trying to use terminology which doesn't switch triggers. Okay, martial arts has good if it's helped you, if it's got you to a stage where you've been able to get past the programming. It's good. You've used the building blocks. You've used that methodology to help, and it's worked. That's good. But understand very clearly, you've been conned. Okay? Now, that means that you've got to understand that somewhere in the toolkit that you've trained yourself in, there's going to be a few bits in there which don't do what they should do, and you've been conned. That doesn't mean the whole toolkit or the whole methodology is wrong. It means that somebody has very carefully manipulated the training and and what you've done to misdirect you just at the right place so they can defeat you.
I would debate that with you, but it's
yes, yes, and
because I know how universal life force energy works. I mean, you're talking about higher consciousness merged with the black belt design. I'm not talking about the negative side or aspect of programming through martial arts.
Yes,
but I understand, Miles.
Yes, but That's the point. We've all been given matrix programming. No, we haven't been. This is the point. You've got to exceed the net sum of your total programming. You've got to somehow be a brick that creates a house. And I am as programmed as you are. But when you're outside the programming and you realize what it is, you're going to beat your own head about to get yourself to wake up.
Well, I consider myself to be very much deprogrammed. I mean, they couldn't program me, Miles. That was the problem they had. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yes, good. Yes.
While we're here, we're getting ready to wrap this up very, very soon. But I want people to be able to access your website. So let's give them your website and how they can get a hold of you and all that good stuff and what you're doing.
It's undergroundvideouk.com, but the project, the basisproject.org is the site I've been trying to get going for about 4 months. But in the meantime, there was no big global conspiracy to shut Miles Johnston down. I've had undergroundvideouk.com for so long, I forgot to renew the registration subscription. So it's taken quite a while to drag that back up. It's a pretty crude website at the moment. I'm Megawatts 1066 on YouTube, or Miles Johnston about 5 times over, thanks to Google making sure we're all one name. But I'm doing the Basis Project, and the Basis Project is really a continuation of my work at the Irish UFO Research Centre, where in the 1970s we discovered that there was an awareness trigger called the intelligence transfer sequence, where the Irish were waking up and they were expressing that wake up in the pirate radio broadcasters. And then I found that all governments that ever tried to shut those stations down, right up to Mrs. Thatcher, were all taken out. So if the intelligence, maybe the intelligence transfer sequencer will help us get out of this problem. Basically, the intelligence transfer sequencer is the ability to exceed your net programming, okay, if you do as much as you can within your own personal resources, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. If you are able to try and go in that direction, the ITS sequencer will quantum leap the solution for you. It doesn't tell you how to do anything. It doesn't give you any ideas how to do anything. It gives you the mechanism. It gives you the toolbox to do that. It's a little bit like being in an automatic car with only a 1.2 liter engine, and then suddenly you find you're got a stick shift and you're driving a 40-ton truck with super turbochargers. Okay, if I can equate that. But you've got to do it with your intention. And if you get your intention, possibly that's the way that you can exceed the sum of your net programming. And because I'm using those terms, it's limiting. We're limited by language here. There's a wonderful woman called Sasha Christie in England who came up with that. We're limited by our language.
She's great.
She's a very mild-mannered person, doesn't express herself very well.
Just like me,
Yeah.
Well, Miles, we're getting ready to wrap this up, but I have to thank you so much for being on tonight. I hope to have you back very soon. Are you doing a lecture soon? Are you going to be at one of the where are you going to be?
I'm going to the UFO Congress to hang about and talk to people, probably cause trouble. But
I'll see you soon.
I'm hoping to go to the next Super Soldier Summit.
Okay.
And we've got our own. We're having a conference here in Wiltshire with the brilliant Maria Wheatley and some other wonderful people. Hope to have Mary Rodwell is going to co-host at the basisproject.org transhumanization conference in Wiltshire, in possibly Marlborough, in early August. And I'll be at the conference, the Alchemical Conference at the Heathrow Hilton in April.
Excellent. Awesome. Around your birthday, too.
I think it's April. Jesus.
Wow.
It's up soon anyway. Yeah.
I do want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening at Revolution Radio. Staff producers, everybody. Jerry B., thanks. Steve Travesty, great questions. Bruce, and also everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome tonight. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Also, please join me next week when my special guest will be Laura Eisenhower. And we'll see how fast we can talk in 2 hours. And stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Becky coming up next, of course, to sell you on into the night. And any final words?
Well, Solaris, you're fantastic. It was wonderful to meet you. It was wonderful to interview you, even if I interrupted you every 30th of a second and half thought frame, which I'm notoriously badly famous for. And the great guys, Lorian and everybody at Revolution Radio, this is fantastic what you're doing. God bless and good luck from a wet Wiltshire, the home of the crop circles in England.
All right. Well, keep me posted on that weather over there. I know a lot of people were saying that the weather itself was almost a kind of like a paranormal thing.
It is manufactured. Make no mistake about it. This is so clear. When I was in Norway at my dear friend Anna Hess's place in Norway, I went there for a minus 20 degrees Celsius Christmas with ice cold snow and all that. It was plus 10, 30 degrees warmer than it should be, and we could see the cloud signatures of scalar weather weapon systems in place. This is artificial, this weather. Make no mistake about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've had some interesting weather here, of course, on the mainland, as you know.
Yes, exactly. It's by activating it here, it's affecting you where you are across the pond. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's clearly artificial. But very briefly, a scientist did let it slip on the BBC that the Earth is inevitably spiraling into an ice age. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for global warming, the so-called carbon footprint stuff, we would have been in it by now. So
I've heard that also. Well, thank you so much, Miles. Take care. It's wonderful talking to you. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Listening to Revolution Radio.